Hi, my name is Isabella Johnston, and I am the Intern Whisperer. Our show is brought to you by Employers for Change, and today's tip of the week builds on our series on unconscious bias. Did you know that there were 16 types of unconscious bias that commonly affect candidates and employees in the workplace? This week's tip is about attribution bias, which is the phenomena where you try to make sense of, or you judge a person's behavior based on your prior observations and interactions that you've had with that individual. It builds up this whole perception that we have of them. While this may seem harmless, humans are quick to judge and falsely assume about a person without knowing their full story. So when hiring, attribution bias can cause hiring managers and recruiters to determine their full story without even knowing if it's true. So you want to make sure that you're not thinking, oh, this person is unfit for the job because they did something unusual or their resume has something on there that you're not sure about. There's different ways that you can avoid this type of bias. So rather than assume a candidate is unfit for a job because they were late to the interview, ask them what happened. It could be totally innocent and unprecedented. If there is something on their resume or something they said during the interview that caused you to draw conclusions about the candidate, be sure to ask further clarifying questions. Don't forget that interviewees are often nervous and they may misspeak or stumble. Just give them a chance to share their full story with you before you judge them. Thank you so much. Welcome to the Intern Whisperer. Our show is all about the future of work and innovation. Hi. So this week's guest is somebody I've known for a little bit. I'm really excited to have him on my show. His name is Choi. He is an AWS solutions architect, the CEO of Easy Cloud Solutions, also the founder. And this company helps with web hosting, security, and development. If you don't know how to use AWS, he's the person to call. He is also the pastor of Hill Community Church in Torrance, California. And so, Ray, welcome to the show.
Hello. Good to see you, Isabella.
Always nice to see you. So I feel like we should open with something you told me before we started the show, this special AI that you're using. But I'm going to hold off on that one because I always ask my guests, what are the 5 words that describe you and why those 5 words? And I can help you because we did go through those right before the show.
Okay, I am husband, father, AWS certified, and entrepreneur.
Yep.
How about that?
So why those 5 words? And you led with husband. So that means your wife is going to be happy that you talked about her.
My wife, Jackie, she is my other half, my better half, my best friend. So without her, there is not much meaning in life. So that's why I have to start with her. Father, I have 3 boys, one in college, a second one who about to go to college, and a third one who just entered high school. Church planter, I would say I am bivocational, so I have 2 full-time jobs, but I'd say church planting, pastoring is my main one. And then to pay the bills, I also did not throw away my tech career when I jumped into the ministry. And so I also have a tech company. So it involves AWS, AI, technology. So I'm an entrepreneur.
Mm. So our listeners may not know what AWS is. You might need to explain to them what cloud-based service is. So definitely make sure that you include that. But before we start that, I'm going to go back to what you told me. So there's this special piece of AI platform that you're using. You're in a noisy cafe, but I do not hear any background. I want to know more. What is that product? And tell our listeners.
Yes. So I knew I had this podcast / video interview scheduled for the afternoon, but it's such a beautiful day in sunny California. I wanted to have close access to the beach. So I did a quick Google search and I found this AI company called Crisp.ai. I signed up for them, tried it out, and I'm actually trying out live for the first time on this call. I'm in a very loud cafe. The fan is blowing constantly. People are speaking, and it's a very crowded cafe. But as you can tell, it has wonderful noise cancellation, like far beyond what Zoom can do. And so I'm happy that it's working well for this interview.
Yeah, I could not even believe it when you told me because I don't see anybody moving behind you. So you must be against a wall.
Yes,
It's
yes, I'm behind.
amazing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That is incredible. Okay, so let's go ahead and then explain to our listeners what is an AWS architect, what is AWS, all of that good stuff.
Yes, so AWS is the largest cloud platform. If I'm sure all of your listeners have shopped on Amazon.com, the largest e-commerce company in the world, that is just causing a lot of other businesses to shutter and close permanently, unfortunately. But good for them. So Amazon has built this large platform, and in order to run Amazon.com, where you can order something and receive it sometimes within hours, they needed to build this technology infrastructure where you can click on order something online or through your phone app, and it just magically shows up. Like, how does that whole process happen? And so I think Amazon was smart. It said, well, we figured this out and we have all this back end technology. Why don't we rent it out to folks who might want to leverage a piece of it? So that's exactly what they've done. And it's Amazon, AWS, which is the cloud Amazon Web Services, the cloud arm of Amazon.com, is actually the biggest moneymaker for Amazon, more than the e-commerce, which people may not know. And it's the number one cloud platform. Number two, a distant two, would be Microsoft Azure. Google Cloud Platform is even a more distant number three. Amazon is the market leader, and so I decided, well, if I'm going to be in technology, I should understand AWS and what they have to offer. So a few years back, I went through several courses, got several certificates, and I started incorporating that into my business.
Yeah, that was a smart move. And that's honestly how I met you is because they also have a refer consultant program. And when
Yeah.
I was looking for somebody, because I went, I do not understand Amazon. It is a beast for sure.
Yes, 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 it is.
And that's how
It is.
I came across you.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. So that is super, super interesting. I remember you telling me something about one of your sons also, and that he had taken the certification, which is rigorous and quite challenging.
Yes, yes. So, two of my boys, it's an interesting story. There's the associate level certificates, which is hands-on working knowledge of the platform. So you have to be quite technical to pass any of those. And then there's a professional level, which means you're like a super expert. But even before those certificates, there's the base certificate cloud practitioner, which I didn't take, but I thought, oh, this is perfect for my boys. There's people who want to dip their toes in it. Maybe you're not sure you're going to go into technology, but like if you want to do sales for AWS, you need a working knowledge of their service offering, and you got to know the vocabulary. So that's the level that AWS Cloud Practitioner Certificate is for. And so summer when both of my boys, I think one was in high school, one was in junior high school, I had them study for the test. We showed up at the examination to take the test, and it turns out that there's a minimum age requirement of 18 years old, which my boys did not make that cutoff. And so I was upset at that because to me, you shouldn't have to be 18 years old to show proficiency in any technology. So I started trying to contact Amazon. I didn't get anywhere. And then I said, well, let me just email Jeff Bezos. So I guessed his email address. It must be Jeff at Amazon.com. I emailed him. Within the next business day, his executive assistant got back to me and said, Yeah, sure. We will contact the testing center and give your boys approval for take to take the test. And um, I also knew it was possible to fight for it because I had Googled and I found a LinkedIn article about a 9-year-old who's a part of a 9-year-old who did pass the same test. So I know it was possible. And so my boys, I think, are the second, third youngest people to ever pass the AWS Cloud Practitioner certificate.
Yeah, that's a pretty big, pretty cool hat to wear and some
Yes, yes,
big shoulder pads that you need. Yeah,
yes, yes.
and it's quite weighty. So
Thank you, thank
that is,
you,
I really like that story a lot, and I think it speaks to the amount of work that it takes to become that.
thank you, thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they didn't just I'm sure they may have walked out of the womb being that smart, but they didn't come out knowing Amazon Web smart. So that was a lot of
Yes, 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 yes.
yeah.
It beats playing video games in the summer.
Oh yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, would you tell our listeners about your educational journey? How did you get started? Where did you go to school? It can be anywhere you want. Your career path, and then how did you start your business? And I know you have two things that you're going to tell us about.
So yes, I went to college, and because I'm Asian, most Asian parents only have two career choices. You're either a doctor or a lawyer. So
Yep.
I was slightly more technical, so I was put on the pre-med track. Berkeley pre-med was quite rigorous, and I was not a good student, and so I did not do so well. I became a Christian in college, and so I kind of got burnt out with trying to please my parents and trying to be the best student. And so and then Berkeley science lectures are notoriously boring because the professors there were not hired because they're great teachers. They are incredible researchers.
Yeah.
And teaching is really kind of an afterthought. And so I just got bored of trying to listen to a couple years of science lectures. And so I just took different courses. I took an anthropology course, and I finally found lecturers who were somewhat interesting. It's not so much I love what they were saying, the content. I just liked how they spoke. I liked their eloquence. I was interested and engaged during the lecture instead of falling asleep. So I became an anthropology major. And then by my fourth year, it dawned on me that I'm not going to be Indiana Jones looking for some lost relic, and so I should figure out what practical skills I have to secure a job. That's when I started working at a computer lab for the Berkeley Business School. Started taking some programming classes, some technology classes, try to read up on myself. And my first job out of college, fortunately, was Bank of America, which is a large bank, maybe the second largest bank in America. And they were hiring for technical managers. And so they did a national search. And so they wanted to kind of break the wall between technical people who maybe did not have good communication skills and business people who could not understand technology. So they put us, they hired, I mean, they hired about 15 of us nationwide to go through a program which was free education, the latest technologies for the first 3 months. And then we had our pick of all the uh, jobs within Bank of America's technology headquarters. And so that was my first entry into technology.
So, did you like working in the finance industry? I mean, some people either love it or they don't.
Well, I was part of the home banking team, which was to manage their Unix servers. And Bank of America, I think at the time, it was like 180,000 employees. And so I kind of learned what I needed to do for my job very quickly. And we're also specialized. And so we were doing network performance, finding bottlenecks in the network, and going out with a sniffer, capturing packets and generating reports just so we can remove bottlenecks in this large scale enterprise network. But it's like a 40-hour job. I think I finished my job in about half the time and I was kind of bored. And so I decided, well, as a young person, I don't want to be sitting there 20 hours a week twiddling my thumbs. So I jumped into the startup world. I joined various startups. The ones I joined went bankrupt after a few years because I was employed in the late 90s, and then by 2000 the bubble burst. The one company that I got hired for that I did not accept was acquired by a large company, AAA. And so that one, I think, had I taken that job, I might have been a millionaire.
Oh,
So
wow.
I just I did not discern which which one
Yeah.
I should have gone for.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was all for
Oh,
the better.
yeah. Well, that's good. It's a positive way to look at it for sure. What is
Yeah.
Unix? Is it Unix?
Unix is just an operating system like Mac OS
Oh,
is
okay.
the shiny operating system that Apple put on top of Linux, which is similar to Unix, so different flavors.
Yeah, I have heard of Linux, but I had never heard of Unix. And I went, okay, there's something new. I've got to make sure I know what that one is. So you went from there, from Bank of America, you tried startup life. How did you get to where you are now, where you have your own company and also, being engaged, being a pastor at a church?
Yeah, so I got married in 2000.
Did your wife go
Uh,
to Berkeley too?
yes, my wife went to Berkeley. We met at Berkeley. I was a sophomore at the time. She was a freshman. We were in this kind of strict church. And that's another story which we should save for another time.
Okay.
But dating was kind of frowned upon, and I was a young Christian. I thought, okay, let's not get into that when you're an undergrad. I'm a new believer, so I just kind of put that aside. But I knew when I was a sophomore and she was a freshman that I was going to marry her. I just had a strong sense of that. Fast forward, a few years later, got graduated, asked her out on a date, and pretty much the first date we're talking about marriage. So that was 1998. Got married in 2000. We went to Japan as missionaries, and while we were on the mission field, God reminded me of what He told me when I was graduating from college in 1996. I knew I was not on a conventional path. I knew at some point I was going to be a pastor. I just didn't know when, where, and so kind of filed that away. God rekindled that desire when I was a missionary in Japan, reaching out to students there. And the students, if you know Japan, many missionaries have been sent there, but it's a very difficult place to evangelize. And some people say if one convert to Christianity in Japan is equal to 100 here. And so
Wow.
sure enough, it was difficult the first couple of years, but by the third year, we saw dozens and dozens of college students come to faith there, and the church, kind of grew. My heart for people was rekindled, and so I started going to seminary back there. And so when that mission trip ended like 3.5 years later, came back to Torrance because my wife's parents were there. Came to Torrance, Fuller Seminary's there, so I transferred from Gordon Conwell to Fuller Seminary, finished up there, graduated in 2006, and then I was just kind of waiting. I didn't know when I was going to pastor or when I'm going to use this degree, and so I went back into technology, into another startup, and just waited for the timing. And so from 2006, 2010, 11. I was driving about an hour and a half from Culver City at the time to um, Hollywood. Not really enjoying my job. It was a dysfunctional husband and wife running this company. lot of obscenity, a lot of stress because personal finances of this founding couple and the company finances were all intertwined. Coffee mugs were thrown against the wall. So I just
Whoa.
didn't like, I just didn't, it was very dysfunctional. I didn't like going there. I knew God had called me to something else, but the timing wasn't right. So it was a waiting for about 4 years or so. God finally called me to be a pastor in 2011. Hill Community Church was birthed in 2012. And so now at that point, I've been doing technology for about 15 years. And I thought, okay, church planters, I mean, it's like you're planting a church from scratch. I'm
Hmm.
not getting hired by a large church with a big budget. I had three young boys and a wife to provide for. And so I thought, okay, I'm in technology. Let me start something so that I don't have to rely on the church for finances. And it began with just bartering services. Like I went to a jeweler because getting a ring refitted. I said, okay, I'm a pastor, and it turns out the owner was a Christian, and we hit it off. He trusted me. I said, okay, you need help with your website? He said, I need some help. Do you need help with social media? And so I can help there. And we just started bartering services. The same with the boys. They were in daycare and preschool, and tuition was quite a bit, and daycare is quite a bit of money, especially in California. And I told the school, well, your website needs some help, and it looks like your computer lab is kind of outdated, and we're having printer problems. Why don't I help you? And can you lower the tuition? So they lowered the tuition. I kept helping them. I earned their trust. After a while, they lowered it to zero for all three boys.
Wow.
And then a few years later, it was zero tuition for all three boys, and they paid me 100%. So
Oh,
that's how the company got launched because, the other people I think were just taking advantage of like school directors who are not the most technically literate. And so back in the day, this director was paying $600 to Yellow Pages and not even knowing what am I getting out of this Yellow Pages advertising. I said, you don't need to do that. You're wasting your money. Let's just build organic SEO. Let's just publish regularly on your website. Let's make it easy for people to see what the school is about. And so just just by cutting out services, me providing value, and the enrollment going up. That's how I earned their trust, and that's kind of how Easy Cloud grew.
that's a nice story. It was a nice blend
Yeah,
of like certainly faith, but your family is a family owned business, I guess, also, right? So
sure, yes, yes,
yeah, it's got family woven throughout the whole tapestry of the story.
yes, yes. They're a big part of my story.
Yeah. So that's cool. What does your wife do?
She used to be in HR. Now she is supporting
Nice.
me 100%. Pastor's wife. She's kind of an unsung hero. Just all the logistics. I just have to show up and do my thing, but
Yeah.
she does all the background stuff.
Yeah.
Uh,
Anybody in
uh,
ops is huge.
yes, yes. And a few years ago, I convinced her to quit her job and just, can you help me with Easy Cloud as well? So she handles HR, finances, legal stuff, all the tedious paperwork that I really don't want to take care of.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, sounds like it's a good business arrangement also there.
Yes,
Mutual
yes,
shared gifts. So so when we were talking about how you started all of this business, you had I know that we had talked about some other ideas of things that we would potentially do together. And so you work with me over here at Employers for Change. And you're also the one that I go to for anything that's Amazon stuff. I have so much issues with it. I'm very grateful for that. But you've also sent your kids over. And so they're working over here with us. So it truly is that
yes,
family arrangement. I'm going to throw
yes,
that one
yes,
out there because, they're
yes.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, they are my. I don't have a 401k, but my children are my 401k.
They
In case
are.
I
They are. They definitely
yeah.
are. So, okay, I'm looking over here. What is the favorite quote that you live your life by?
My favorite quote is probably linked to my favorite chapter in all of Scripture, which is John 15. Jesus is the vine. I am merely a branch. Apart from Jesus, I can do nothing. He is my life. He is everything to me. And so I just try to stay as close to him as I can and live life like him, follow him, do life the way he did. And I feel like I'll be okay as long as I do.
Hmm. That's really, really nice. Some of my other listeners, they share Bible verses also, and I find that always encouraging. I think for other people to hear. What is the hardest lesson that you learned that changed your life for the better?
Yes, I think because I'm an Asian and an entrepreneur, work ethic is very important. And so I think when we started the church, I did not order things properly. Especially now that I've been a Christian for a while and I see things in scripture I didn't see when I was a young believer. I see that God has a way of growing people, and you're a good. It starts with you're a good Christ follower, and then from there, if you're married, you're a good spouse. You can serve your spouse, and then if you have children, you manage your household well. And this is the training ground for leadership in God's church. I was saved as a college student, and I got thrust into ministry in college and right out of college. Before I was married, before I had children, and I was very active that in that kind of a with that kind of a mindset. I even went to missions with that mindset. I fast forward to 2 years into our church plant. Uh, um, my wife was having so much difficulty at the church because of some difficult personalities. It got so bad that she said, "I don't think I can go to church anymore," and that was quite shocking for me as a pastor. And this is supposed to be a safe place, and if anyone should be looking forward to it, it should be me and my wife. And for her to say that, it was a very loud rebuke from the Lord that I had prioritized the work and the church ministry over over myself and my wife and my children and their flourish. And so it became so obvious that in my heart, I had made a decision. Okay, if it's this bad, I should step down. I'm not even qualified to be a pastor. But at the last moment, the Lord stepped in. He changed things around. And as I was about to tender my resignation, the situation totally changed. And it was an important lesson for me. I should really pay attention to how I am doing, how my wife is doing, how my children is doing. I should never be that person who is so busy that my marriage suffers, that my children suffer, that I suffer, that I'm burning out. You read about burnout among pastors, you read about scandals, and you think about how did they end up this way? I think it's because the order was wrong. And so as long as I establish order of Jesus first, I should be thriving in the Lord Jesus, and then my wife should be thriving. My children should be cared for, and then church is below all of that. That to me is a recipe for long-term success.
Mm. So one of the pastors at my church had explained it this way. He said, "There's the Trinity, and what we're supposed to do as people is man, especially in a married relationship." They said, "Man is to lean into God. That is the role. Man leans into God. The wife leans into the man that's leaning into God. If we are doing that, we stay true to we'll call it the Trinity of God first, then it's husband, then wife, and then kids. Work
Yes,
is in there also, but you have to keep your personal house in order to be able to keep, and it flows out for sure.
yes, yes, yes. Fully agree with that.
Yeah, I like that picture. I remember when he was explaining it, I went, "Oh, that's a very tender memory there, or maybe memory, but a good counsel, but definitely a very sweet picture that you can see in your head." The next question is, what are you most grateful for?
Well, I mean, the most obvious one, which is assumed, but I won't use that as my final answer. The most obvious one is salvation.
Mhm.
So we'll just take that off the list. The second one, second gift from the Lord I'm most thankful for is my wife. Because she is with me in everything that I do, personally, at church, at work. I mean, she is by my side literally 24/7. So, uh, um, yeah, we maybe other pastors don't do life this way. We homeschool our kids, so literally we travel in a pack. So if we go somewhere when the kids were younger, all five of us are piling into a minivan. We're going to breakfast, lunch, dinner at home, or going to the beach. We're doing everything as a team. And so, among those, my wife is she has to be at the top because I know spiritually, my children are precious, but they will leave me at some point.
Mhm.
It's designed that way. I can't hold on to them. And they're supposed to leave me. They're supposed to start their own household. But the one person, the one covenant that will stay with me till death do us part is my wife. So I should treasure her above anybody else.
That's very nice also. So I read an interesting statistic. It was last week. It said that your children, because, at age 18, they take off, they usually go to college, right? Or they could be leaving the house for whatever reason. But your children are only with you 20% of your life, where you see them every day. By the time they leave, everything shifts. So if you haven't poured into them what you wanted at that time, it's a little more challenging. Doesn't mean it can't happen, but you want to make sure that you're instilling in children whatever the values are that you want to make sure that they know.
Yes, and I think my mindset in the beginning was, there's scripture that's the little kids are running to Jesus, and the disciples are trying to shoo away the children, and Jesus said, "Let the children come." And I think I had that mindset that I'm an introvert, I have a lot of work to do, and so send the kids away. And the Lord, He stopped me some years ago. He said, "No, you need to let the children come." And so that we started homeschooling. My oldest was in the eighth grade, and it was just a reorienting of my perspective. Like you said, it's only 18 years. I really do have a very limited time, and the
All
window is
amount of
fast
time.
closing. Yeah, and so, and I think parents maybe with children, with both parents might be working, it's so busy, and it's easy to send the kids away. I realize that. Parents might focus so much on the children, not knowing that yes, they're going to leave you, and it's just 20% of your life with them, and then 20 years goes by or 20-year plus, and then there's no connection with the spouse anymore because they haven't focused on one another. So I think for me, I have to prioritize Jesus and my marriage. Children, I'm sorry to say, they are in third place in my hearts.
Mhm, mhm. Well, that probably has still tying into who in your life has had the biggest impact and why.
It has to be my wife. She
Okay.
is, yes, it has to be.
She's hitting home runs. She's got all the bases going on.
Yes, yes, yeah. I mean, that's an obvious one, and so I think my other answer is I met a pastor a few years ago, and I think every pastor needs a pastor, and so I had mentors in my life, pastors in and out of my life, but I was kind of a solo pastor for a while, and then I met this pastor 2 years into me being a bivocational minister. And by that point, I already hit a wall. in my heart, and I explained how my wife was feeling about going to church. And around that time, I think I was almost ready to quit. And then God brought this pastor into my life, and his name is Pastor Brian Park. He's in Korea. He has a kind of a virtual church ministry, Just Jesus, and a quite large following in Korea. Anyway, I met him, and he said something interesting to me. He said, "You're coming to God as a pastor and not as a child." And I at first I didn't understand what he was saying because I thought, well, I am a pastor. I'm supposed to do work for the Lord. I'm supposed to grow the church and evangelize and do all these things. And it just took a while for that comment to kind of settle into my spirit. And he, mentored me after that time. And now, many years later, I'm coming to understand what that means. I am beloved for who I am, not for the work I do for him. My chief identity when I approach the Father is a child. So although my one of my vocations and calling is to serve the church as a pastor, that is not really my main ability before.
Hmm. I love being in children's ministries. It always reminds me of how to work with adults. It's exactly like
Yes,
what you're saying. You have to
yes,
let the child come out of them.
yes, yes,
They're
yes.
so obviously innocent with their words and whatever they want to say. They do know how to manipulate, though. I'm not going to lie. Those 3 and 4-year-olds, they're pretty darn smart. They're
Yes,
pretty darn
yes, yes.
smart. But
Yeah, I think, yeah, because of their innocence, I think that's why Jesus said they are the greatest in the
mhm,
kingdom of God, their humility and their innocence, which
yeah,
I want to be that way to my Heavenly Father and to Jesus.
mm, it's a good story there. And this one is usually the toughest question. So, what do you want to be remembered for in your life? If it's like that day people are remembering you, what is it that you want them to say? What would you want them to remember you for?
I want to be known as somebody who loved God and loved neighbors, loved people, that I became a mini Jesus and just shining his love to people that I meet. I hope that can be said of me on my last day.
Hmm. Yep, to everyone. That would be very true. Well, we're going to take a small break to acknowledge our sponsor, Transcend Network, and we will be right back.
Transcend Network helps early stage startup founders find product market fit through weekly experiments, receive fundraising support, and build a global founder investor network for EdTech and the future of work technologies. The Intern Whisperer is affiliated with Employers for Change, and we thank Transcend Network for being a sponsor of our show.
And we're back to the second half of our show where we talk about the future of jobs and industries in 2030. So I was doing some research on a 3-part series article about how AI, how employers right now are preparing their workers for 2030 with AI. And it's a little unsettling. Some of it is. I looked at the good and the worrisome. And some of the roles that AI is going to be creating is going to be things that is creating more bots, honestly, that can do things because people cannot skill up fast enough to keep up with
Right,
the pace
right.
of what we have created as people. We have done this to ourselves, so I don't know what we're complaining about. But anyway, what do you think 2030 is going to look like? You can go in any direction you want.
Yeah, 2030, it is frightening the pace at which AI is evolving. And unfortunately or fortunately, when other technologies kind of burst upon the scene, like even like AWS, I say, okay, these are things worth learning, but and then there's like VR technology and different things, and every time that something is announced, it seems like, oh, this is a real disruptor, and it's going to change the way we do life. Like the internet was a major disruptor in the late '90s, early 2000s. Um, I don't think I felt like we've had that kind of a disruptor since the late '90s, 2000 until AI. That's why I started. web hosting, on-site tech support, even AWS cloud, consulting. But really, I've pivoted most of my energies to AI because I think by 2030, if you're not on the AI train, you might be left behind, unfortunately. Take for example one industry like accounting. Uh, I have an accountant. She does great work for me. She knows all the changing laws, and she can spend a few hours and at $500 to $1,000 a year, she can get me a decent tax return. I can just punch in my information on an AI accounting website, and I can get the same benefit at a fraction of the cost within seconds or minutes. And so now, if somebody says, "Yeah, I want to grow up to be an accountant," I would say, maybe you want to rethink that because I'm not sure how many accountants are going to be around. So that's how I look at it. That's how I am telling my boys, okay, the reason why they're CS majors and going into CS because I told them, um, uh, you might have other interests, but whatever you do in life, you want to understand the technology because otherwise you're going to be out of a job. And so, um, um, yeah, by 2030, it's hard to know because even ChatGPT got launched at the end of December of
Last
last
year.
year,
Yeah.
late last year, and look at how far it's come from version 3 to 3.5 to 4, and look at how many competitors have come upon the scene even in the last few months. We're talking about a span of 6 months or less, and now you fast forward 7 years. I can't even imagine what life, maybe in the worst possible sense, like how much more more difficult it may be to make
Yeah.
ends meet, because people are displaced from their jobs and their skills are no longer um, valued in the marketplace. I think that one of my advice to people is you have to learn AI. You have to keep educating yourself consistently, even if you graduated, whatever job you're in. You want to keep learning and understand. Is there a future in this job that I'm in? So just I think that should be the mindset of many people as they move toward 2030.
You really raised some interesting questions because when I looked at what are the careers that are going to be most impacted, accounting was one. So are lawyers because I mean that the law is the law, and once
Right.
that's there, you're sitting and going, okay, well, anybody could represent themselves, in a court of law. Then I mean that
Right.
opens itself up, and look for whatever the possible loopholes are. That's going to be a problem. Where they
Right.
would not displace would be judges, so that's good to know. They should not displace people in any of our governments that are managing money, as
Right.
well as like the IRS. And I think that there's going to end up being, even though you could do that, I feel like the need for having people that do understand accounting is even going to be more important because you don't know if you have to go and argue a case against the IRS. So there would be a place of expertise in that role of somebody that can, defend you if that's
Right.
because everything in the in the world that's in the internet is, oh, yeah, it's on the internet. It must be right. No, that's not true. And just
Yeah.
because AI brings something to the table, we should never say, oh, yeah, it's out there. It's an AI. It must be true. No, we shouldn't believe that. So I feel like there's going to be authentication, people that are going to be doing more fact checking to ensure that it is correct. Researchers definitely would be in need to make sure that not everybody is meant to be a programmer. I know I would
Right.
not. I would not
Right.
survive as a programmer.
Neither would I. I mean, I've kind of dabbled in programming, but I think there's a certain way your brain works, and I don't
Yeah.
have that brain. So
No.
I would also not do well as a programmer if that was my full-time job.
Yeah. A researcher I could do. I can do research, and I would be really good in that area, be really good with the writing side of it. And I feel like that is going to be a career path that will still be in demand, but it's more in that place of fact checking what is going out and what people are um, looking at and believing is reality.
Yes, yes. And the fact checking is an interesting one because AI, there's a thing called temperature in the chat GPT world at least. And so if you raise the number of the temperature, you're giving it more creative license. And it's good to have maybe a higher number for temperature for things like creative writing, for example. But if you want factual information, then the temperature should be lower. And so, but then there's this weird phenomena that AI just gets tired and it makes things up and it's fatigued. And so, like, how do you fact check? And so even, I'm just thinking of, little plugins that we could do. It's like I don't want to trust one AI. I want to compare OpenAI's ChatGPT with like Google Bard. Does the answers line up? And like, can we corroborate that this answer is more accurate? And maybe all the AIs, because it's all training data, maybe the data is off, or maybe the data is biased. And so, if you want to fact check, then maybe you want to if these other social media platforms, uh, Twitter, for example, is moving in a more, maybe I would say, more toward freedom. So like, can we tap into the Twitter's API, balance out maybe Google Bard's AI, and get a fair answer and a debate with two different positions on the same issue? And so I think the fact checking, how it's done is a critical piece of us knowing, because people are generating articles now, publishing it on their website, and these are artificially generated articles, and some of it, 90% of it, 99% might be factual, but that 1% will be off. But when you read that, you would not even know unless there's some kind of a fact checking for all the details of whatever's produced by AI.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree with you. Um, if we're looking at what AI can do, I've also asked people what their thoughts are about robots. And let me ask you, have you watched Black Mirror? I like to ask my guests this question a lot. Have you seen Black Mirror on Netflix?
I've seen some episodes, yes.
So one that came out this year for season 6, I only saw the first episode. I haven't gone to see the others. It was Everybody Hates Joan. And there's this place of terms and conditions that we sign, and we are waiving our ability to have freedoms because we're signing it over to whoever it is. And it was a Netflix movie.
Mm.
So, they made it look like Netflix, honestly. They're really pushing the boundaries with that quite a bit. And I guess it's tongue in cheek is how I describe it. But what are your thoughts about the terms and conditions that are out there? Because people don't read them. And I feel like that's
People
something
don't read it.
they
Yep.
should be doing.
Yeah, the terms and conditions, it's like the fine print
Sure.
that we just conditioned to. Well, let me just have access to the tool. Let's just look past that. I think you're right on the money. We want to see, like, if we generate content using AI, who owns that content?
Yep.
Even ChatGPT, they just launched a feature that you can tell it not to save any of the
Opt out.
chats, opt out of the of it recording it and using it for training data. For me, it's like, as soon as I saw that feature, I want to use it because I'm using ChatGPT, for example, to brainstorm AI ideas, and I don't want it to be stolen. And so,
Mhm.
but then it gets into, are they ethical? Do they, when you shut it off, is it really turned off?
You
It's
don't
it's like
know.
a you don't know. It's like a social media company. You can delete your account or deactivate it, but is it really deleted from the server? In my understanding, it's not.
That's what
Uh,
I understand too.
yeah. So yeah, the terms and conditions, the legal copyright issues, these I think we have to start pausing on those screens a lot more.
hmm There was this, I saw it again, it was like a Netflix thing, several years ago, several years ago, and they took three cell phones. They left one in the box, didn't break the plastic wrapper. They opened the box of the second one, had it out, turned it on, turned it off, did nothing else with it. And then the third one, they turned it on. They all three tracked you.
Yes, 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 yes. I've heard that. I have heard that. Just because you turn off a phone, you just think, okay, it's everything is turned off. No, there's a low level uh functionality that it has even while it's off. And so to me, I'm just generally not trusting of tech giants, even though,
We all have phones.
yeah, it's I'm a Christian, and so when I read the Book of Revelation, I see that how is this going to play out? Technology is a big part
It is
of
the
this.
sign of the beast.
Yes, it is a surveillance control, yeah, beast system that is unfolding right in front of us.
Yeah, very much
Yeah,
so. I
yeah,
believe we're in the matrix. I just throw that one out there too. The red pill, the
yes,
blue,
uh,
just which
uh,
one are you going to do? Yeah. And this is it.
yeah, yeah. I think The Matrix is probably, to me, that's one of my favorite movies because I think it speaks of very true things that are happening to
Very
us,
much
and
so.
we don't even know it.
Yeah, you really don't know. Um, what are your thoughts about virtual reality? Because I have an issue with this one too. I sit here and I go back. We were talking about the Matrix, but boom, you're plugged into the back of the machine, right? So that you're in
Yep,
it. You're in the Matrix. So that's virtual reality. And then there's the movie Avatar, and you have to go and lay in a coffin, is what I call it, to go and
yep,
experience something else. I go, why would I want to do that? There's nothing there that I want to go and do that badly, that I want to lay in a box, because I'm claustrophobic. So I wouldn't want to do any of those things. And I don't like getting blood drawn from me. So there's no way I can see any of these things happening to me, is the point. I don't have enough interest in that, because I think I would much rather know this is my life. This is where I am. I can go to movies, but
yes, yes.
science fiction has, in my opinion, created a lot of what we see. It's brought it to fruition. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, the virtual reality, or just even technology from a phone. I remember the in the late 90s when I was interviewing for this small little IT consultancy, and they were asking me, what future do you see? And I pretty much said, uh, it's going to be the smartphone. We're gonna have access to the whole internet in our pocket, and touch of a finger, we're gonna be able to do whatever we want. And maybe at the time it was, people didn't think that way, but I knew that day was coming. Sure enough, with the first iPhone, a few years later, it is the world of smartphone. And when I see young people, this is just my plug to be disconnected and unplugged from technology. And it might sound weird from coming from a technology entrepreneur. I remember the days of pagers or rotary phones, analog phones. I remember how free my mind was, that I didn't have to be notified every few seconds, or texted, the show that I can watch from a phone. And when I see young people, I see them increasingly tied to their phone. It's like they can't enjoy the sun outside. They can't enjoy nature. They don't even feel motivated to. It's too much work to go out and meet somebody for a cup of coffee or a meal. They'd rather just sit there and
Have their
veg
food
out.
delivered to them.
Yes, yes, yes. And so to me, it's like it's like I think we come from a different era.
Mhm.
We are a bit older, and so we did enjoy a big portion of our life out before the internet came and
Right.
everything came online. And so we know how good our lives were, and it's not like we think it's better now. Uh, Technology has brought a lot of conveniences, but I don't think of it in terms of my life is better. In some ways, I think it's far, far worse.
Mhm.
And when I see the young people, you have two people sitting at a restaurant, they're not even looking at each other, looking down at their
No.
phones. And so to me, that really bothers me, especially as a father. It bothers me when I see young people like that. I want them to exercise. I want them to go and socialize. I want them to go to the beach and hike up the mountain. And so virtual reality to me, it is the fulfillment of what the Matrix was talking about, or what Wall-E, the animation movie, is talking about. The people who are controlling the tech and the tech giants, like if you listen to interviews from Steve Jobs and these CEOs, they didn't give cell phones to their children.
Mm-mm.
And so that speaks of, well, they see the danger of this tech. They would not harm their own relative or their child with this. And yet, because it makes a lot of money, they will give it to the masses.
Mhm.
And we've all bought into that. And so, I think the people who will eventually control the world, sadly, we will be in some form of virtual reality, or little bubble in our small little apartment, and nobody is outside, and only a few people are enjoying everything, and the vast majority of us are in a little, yeah, a steel coffin.
Yeah. Just like you mentioned Wally earlier, and
Yeah,
that
yeah,
movie is like spot on too, in my opinion.
yes, yes,
You have
yep,
little
yep,
like weeble wobbles, people sitting in chairs.
yeah,
But there's a dark side to that movie. I've seen a lot of stuff that goes out there about Wally, and it's saying, well, it's really about cannibalism because like there's no food anymore.
really.
So what you're eating
Ah,
is like it's consuming, the people and your own waste and everything. It's like I'm just sitting here going, that's dark. So I started looking it up and I went, yep, there's quite a bit out there about that one because you don't really question that. And so we should always be thinking of the pros and the cons, which really takes us to our next to last question here is what are the ethical dilemmas that you foresee? And I think you've been talking quite a bit about them, but you can
yeah.
just like list them if you want, because there's a lot of dangers with them.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the young person who's growing up in the age of AI. It is on one hand, it is smart to use AI for your benefit. It is terrible if you're using AI to be your brain, and you're not learning critical thinking. You're not learning to think for yourself, and you're just letting AI do all the work for you.
Hmm.
I mean, so, like, it's a two-edged sword. We do need to learn AI. I think for a young person, I would highly discourage the use of AI, especially in the formative years.
Hmm.
If they grow up with AI too soon, I think their brain will remain a junior high level. They will never grow up and develop a high school,
Yeah.
college brain, they because why go through that trouble? Because AI is doing the heavy lifting for me. And to me, that does a disservice to them. I think in general, population is being dumbed down because of technology. Like
Yes.
like like how many people can even remember phone numbers?
No,
Because there's
none
no
of us.
there's no need to. So
I don't know. I
yeah,
know I don't. And so you raise an interesting question. It isn't even about you giving a phone to your kid. There's so many parents that put their whole life out there and they're recording their kid. I watched this one young woman. She is on TikTok, she's on Instagram, she's everywhere. And she's really engaging. She's a very good actress, I would say. And she has her daughter always on her hip and the kid is always looking right into the camera. And
mm,
the children already know that this camera is a part of it. And you raised something else, an interesting point too, when you mentioned about the generations, whatever technology and you said it to your own kids, technology is advancing. You need to make sure that you're there. We are whatever age that we're born into is, it has influence based on the technology that's been brought into our lives. And then it's also based on historic events that happen. Anything that is also in the sense of like tsunamis or 9/11 or those big historic events when people have been harmed or tragedy. Those are the things that actually become the points in our life that really shape what we think and how we process information. So we came from a different time, rotary phones, yes. People don't know what that is. And when you hear one of those someplace and they have it on our iPhones or our droids, we hear it, we go, wait, what is that? And you can tell like what generation
Right.
are you from because it has significance, right?
Right.
So the kids that are coming out now, they already are surrounded by this technology. I don't think that parents are even thinking about the fact that, well, first off, you're putting your child out there all the time, and this is what they're becoming. You used to sit a kid in front of a video camera or cartoons on Saturday. I don't even know if they
Right.
do that anymore. And now
Right.
just hand a kid a phone and that keeps them placated. And TikTok knows exactly how to keep that formula in play.
And just as a parent, my advice to parents is keep your child off of social media. I would say even as a parent, I'm very wary of living life behind a camera. Like if I'm in nature, my first thought is not, oh, I got to take a picture of myself. I just want to enjoy that scene. And if I forget to take a picture, it's not the end of the world.
Mm,
Because how many times have we just have memories and we were just in the moment, we enjoyed it, and we don't have to record everything to be on a photograph, to promote maybe a false view of our own reality to the world, and to say, oh, we only show the good stuff,
mhm.
which is not the whole of who we are. And so that's just my thing. I use a little bit of social media just because, we have to reach
Sure.
people in our business space, but for personal stuff, I'm really I try to keep that stuff off of social media.
Yeah. You won't find me on any social media personally except LinkedIn. And even LinkedIn, it's all for business. It's you don't know my personal life. So
Yep, yep,
yeah, there
yep.
you go.
Good
What
for
is
you.
the best mentoring advice that you want to share with our listeners moving on?
My best advice is, I mean, it is shaped obviously by the fact that I'm a Christian, a child of God. I remember saying at the very beginning of my Christian life, I don't know what I'm doing. I remember the very beginning of when I started as a pastor. I remember saying, I don't know what I'm doing. And now that I've gone a few years into it, do I feel like I know better or I'm now self-sufficient? If I started to think that way, I think I'd be in a load of trouble. I still think at a base level, I don't know what I'm doing, and that keeps me childlike. That keeps me humble. Without divine help, without wisdom from above, which is moment by moment, I'm really gonna make some terrible mistakes in my life. And so I would say just stay humble. Remember the beginning, you said uh, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know much about whatever field you're getting into. I would say as long as you keep that humility, and I think it'll keep you out of trouble.
I agree. I agree. All right. Well, this is at the end of our show. We always ask our guests, how can our listeners contact you? What is the website, social channels, email? I usually say don't put your email out there, but hey, some people are okay with that. So, what would you like our listeners? We always give them this information in a close card and in our
Sure.
post.
Yeah, I would say the best way to reach me is easycloudsolutions.com. You can find me there on LinkedIn and various places. Probably the most active place we are for Easy Cloud is LinkedIn on our company pages, and I have a bunch of companies underneath Easy Cloud. So, but easycloudsolutions.com would be the best one.
All right. Well, I want to thank you so much for being a guest on the show. This was delightful.
It was my pleasure. Glad to spend time with Isabella any day.
Ah, thank you. We want to thank our sponsor, Cat5 Studios. Thank you to our video team, Gabe Laporte and Tommy Myers. Music is by Sophie Lloyd. Visit Employers for Change at www.e4c.tech to learn how you can create real diversity and inclusive culture while skilling your people for the future of work. Please subscribe and download the Intern Whisperer on Podbean, Employers for Change YouTube channel, or stream from your favorite podcast channel. Please drop us a comment and share our show to enlighten others about amazing people that make every day better.